Hmm. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our May session of Connecting Communities Through Story. Today, I am joining you from the unceded and traditional territories of the Hunkaminam speaking people, upon which the Musqueam people continue their cultural traditions. And I think about my relationship to land and also my privilege as a settler, and that I have a responsibility to continue the decolonizing work that we're doing alongside our Indigenous communities. And part of that is helping children and young learners grow their connection to land and place. Lauren, over to you.
That was wonderful. Thank you. And I'm Lauren McLean, and I am coming from the land of the Quequitlam First Nations, also known as Port Moody. And today I'm feeling very grounded in the land of agriculture because we've been doing lots of growing and planting and weeding and watering. And so I'm feeling very connected to really anything to do with things that are growing out in nature right now. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today.
Oops.
Yes, it is May. And again, our goal for the sessions, since we have started back in January, which is hard to believe, it seems so long ago now, is to bring educators from across the districts of British Columbia. And now it's been across Canada, which is so exciting, with this overall overarching theme of connecting communities through story. So we're so excited for our speakers this month.
Mhm. And just to kind of wrap our heads around some shared understanding again, that this little project or this little connecting time came to be through the spiral of inquiry. It's a way that Lauren and I have both taught together. It's a way that we think through our planning and teaching. And so as we were scanning and as we were thinking about what is it that we each needed as educators, we started to realize that perhaps there might be a need for a space for connecting, for a space where folks can share ideas and a little hub for growing this community of practice. And so as we continue the spiral process, as we continue our own learning, we're grateful that you're all along with us for this.
Perfect. And so this month's theme is on communication. So when April and I sort of tried to put our ideas down on paper, we came up with these 5 sub points that I think are going to be nicely woven in throughout the afternoon. So why focus on it? We think the enhanced learning experience. So in essence, we believe that effective communication skills really help enable teachers to convey information clearly. We're engaging students in discussions, carpet discussions, circle time. We're addressing the students' questions and their queries proficiently, hopefully. That's our goal. We're trying to foster this sort of conducive learning environment where students feel encouraged to participate actively and understand the subject matter better. Empowerment and confidence building. When we're prioritizing communication skills, and we're in BC, so this is a big part of our core competency, we're empowering students to express themselves articulately, both verbally and in writing, drawing. This builds their confidence, not only academically, but also in different social and professional, I guess, contexts, which is really crucial for their personal development and future success. In terms of cultivation of critical thinking, it's really, again, through effective communication that teachers, students were encouraging critical thinking and analytical skills amongst the students. So we're trying to engage them in discussions and debates and presentations, sometimes depending on the age of your learners. And we're trying to help, as the educator, the students articulate their thoughts and evaluate their different perspectives. In terms of preparation for the future, we live in such a interconnected world. Strong communication skills are so imperative. We're trying to focus on communication skills so that we're preparing students for their success in their future careers, whatever they choose to be. And lastly, building positive relationships. We know that effective communication fosters positive relationships between teachers and students, between students and students, students and their parents. When teachers are actively listening, we're providing constructive feedback, we are trying to communicate respectfully, and we're creating that supportive and inclusive learning environment where hopefully the goal again is that our students are feeling valued and motivated in the classroom.
And today we're so excited to have two kindergarten teachers from the Surrey School District, Kelly Shuto and Chelsea Taylor, share some of their practices with us. And Endie Thompkins, who is an early childhood educator and a mother of school-age children, will be joining us for more of like a question and answer type of sharing time. So we'll start with Kelly and Chelsea. And just let us know when you want me to move the slide forward.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so my name is Kelly Shuto.
And I'm Chelsea Taylor.
And we share a classroom together in Surrey. And I'm so lucky to be working with Chelsea because she's absolutely incredible. And I'm glad that she's here with me today to share this. So go. We can move the slide.
Yeah, so we would just like to share our gratitude that we are learning and teaching on the homelands and waterways of the Semiahmoo First Nations, who've been stewards of this land here in South Surrey since time immemorial. And we recognize our neighbors, the Katzie and the Kwantlen First Nations and other Coast Salish peoples. Of course, as traditional territories overlapped, they too may have a relationship with the lands we now call South Surrey here.
So I'm glad Lauren went over what communication means, especially in the BC curriculum so thoroughly, because I was looking through it just today to think about, the things that really stuck out to me as I was looking, and the words are like acquire, develop, and transform ideas, make connections, express individuality, which I love that one. And then finally, finding satisfaction and joy. And I think that in order for us to provide these opportunities for kids to feel those things, and exactly as Lauren had said, to provide an enhanced learning experience, we actually need to provide them time to communicate and collaborate and listen and talk to each other. And I think it's important to recognize that there's so many different ways to communicate and so many different people that we need to think about who are communicating in the room. Like as teachers and as the adults, we are the ones who are often, presenting a message or something, but in our classroom, we want the whole thing to be collaborative, and we want the kids to be an active participant in everything that they do. So we are going to be talking about a unit that we did just after Christmas for 3 months, and it was all based around water. And so you can go to the next one. So the first question is really like, why water? Why would we choose this as a topic? I thought of this topic a few years ago when I was doing my master's, and it was a course called Designing a Connected Classroom. And I thought, what better topic than to think about how we are all connected than to focus on water, because it's not just connecting us in our classroom and in our place here, but also our community and the global community. So we started by asking the kids, what do we know about water? Like, where does it come from? Why is it important? Then we got into questions like, how old is water? And what are the different ways that we can see water? And from there, it naturally just goes into a conversation around, how is water communicating to us in these different places? What sounds does it make? What form does it take? And why is it important that we stop and we listen to water? Next, we shared our ideas and we all brainstormed everything, and we just wrote it all down on a big piece of paper and decided where would be the best place to start. But in order to communicate these big ideas to little minds, we then have to find some experts, and we need to find experts who are able to communicate these big ideas in a way that kids can understand. So there's actually some really incredible videos that we found, because who doesn't like to watch a video? And one of the videos that is just like the most magical is called I Am Red. And it's actually about the Colorado River that communicates to the listener as the river. And it's beautiful and stunning, and the kids are immediately just drawn to it, and they're listening to this river talk to us. And then at the end of the video, Red, the river, explains that it's going dry and why it's going dry, because it's being overused and humans aren't taking care of it properly. And the kids, you could see that it just really hit them, and they were like, well, we need to respect our water, and how can we tell water that we love it and that we're thankful for it. There's also another movie just called I Am Water, and it talks about all the different ways that we use water on our planet and what it's for. And it also talks about pollution and the ocean and how so much of it is covered in plastic. And their little faces went from being so excited about splashing in the beach to, wow, we're not taking care of our resources. And so from there, we moved, you can go to the next one, thank you. We took all of our learning and we thought, well, how can we really express ourselves and express our gratitude for water and communicate like as a group? So we decided to do a collaborative art project. We try to do a collaborative art project at least once per term so that we're all working on something, and then that will hang in our classroom for years to come. And we put the date and the division on it and the year that it was, so that every student who comes to our classroom can see the learning that has happened before them, to just, again, continue to communicate those things. And anyway, so we decided to read The Water Princess, and we learned that people in other parts of the world, and also people close to home, which I think they didn't really understand before, don't have access to the same water that we do. So we said, how can we thank water? How can we show our gratitude? So we decided to paint beautiful pictures using all the different colors of water that we had learned about by watching these videos and by reading the books. And so some kids, first, actually, we took white pastels, I guess, and we drew hearts all over the page, all over the white page. And then we took whatever color of water they wanted to choose. So you can see in the picture, some kids did, you know, the typical blues and greens and purples, and some kids actually did oranges and browns to show the dirty water that they had seen. And when they painted over, all of the beautiful hearts that they had done came through. And it was just this magical moment of kids, you know, like their paper was communicating to them. Their paper was like showing the love, right? Okay, so I think we can go to the next one. And from those beautiful paintings, we took a big hole punch. So we all talked about this. What are we going to do with these paintings now that we have them? We had a canvas and we're like, we have these materials in the classroom. How can we communicate this? So they came up with using this big hole punch, and we actually hole punched all of those paintings that we made into little circles so that they would look like water droplets. So from there, we are communicating collaboratively because we're all working on one project. We're working on our individual communication with our individual papers that we made. And we're also focusing a lot on nonverbal communication because water can't talk to us. So we had talked about like what sound does water make and all these kind of things, and what's it communicating when it's fast or slow or dripping. So we thought it was the perfect way to communicate back to water with little water droplets. So we then took all of our water droplets and we all took turns putting all of the little circles in a row to kind of make it look like it was raining and make this beautiful picture that would hang in our classroom. And then if you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, I know it's really small, I'll tell you what it says in a moment, but then we took some time to communicate verbally with each other. And we decided to take our words to say thank you to water and cut them out and put them on our picture. So in case people were walking by and they didn't know what our beautiful water painting was, because we all knew, then people could actually read the words and see what it said. So all of the rest of this over here on the right, this is a learning story that we then take our learning, we write it all down, we add pictures and, you know, kid voice, because myself and Chelsea, while we're learning along with them, this is really about, you know, our shared experience. So we want their faces and their words on it. So then we would take this learning story and we send this home to families so that they know everything that we've done in the classroom. We can go to the next one. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a closer view of it. So you can see where we started on the top left, just with the water web where all of our ideas were there. We then moved on to, you know, communicating where we see water. You can move on to the next one. We also watched a little video about penguins to see how penguins really communicate with each other, again, without words, just the different sounds that they make, and then through the different forms of water that it takes throughout the year. And then we went to water walk. So you can go to the next one and you can see their paintings. And then finally, the last one, and you can see this is their words here. So what do you think water is trying to communicate to us? I think water is trying to say that we have to be careful around the big waves. It's saying, don't waste me. I think water is saying, don't go near me sometimes when I have big water storms. I think that the water is trying to say, don't splash me and put sand on me so that my water can stay clean. We also said, what do you want to communicate to water? And they said things like, I want to say thank you for keeping me hydrated. I want to say that I'm thankful for water. I want to say, can I splash in you? And I want to say thank you for being kind to humans. And then the last question that we asked was, what do you hope people feel when they see our water artwork? And they said, I hope we feel good. I hope people feel good. I hope people feel happy. And I want people to feel good when they see our artwork. So that was project number 1. And then Chelsea's going to talk about project number 2.
Hi. Yeah, and I just want to say how grateful I am to work with Kelly as well. She's just so amazing. And it's just so wonderful to collaborate and yeah, work on these special projects together. So I kind of picked up on, I also created collaborative work of art on my days with the kids that encompassed collaborative communication, individual, nonverbal, and family communication as well, with creating the learning story to go home to families. And I kind of used water as a metaphor, so kind of flipped a little bit to talk about the ripple effect of communication and how our communication ripples out into the world with the power to influence and inspire and help others. So we began by reading the book Be a Good Ancestor by Leona Prince and Gabriella Prince, and illustrated by the amazing Carla Joseph. The authors are sisters from the Lake Babine Nation, and they belong to the Beaver Clan, and the illustrator is a Cree Métis artist. And if you haven't read the book, it is rooted in Indigenous teachings, and it encourages readers to think about the ways that we live in connection to the world around us, and how every decision we make kind of ripples out to affect others. So on my Wednesdays with the students, I always take them out for outdoor learning. We have our Wilderness Wednesday, and it pours rain every Wednesday without fail. But on the day that I wanted to begin this, it was dry for the first time in months. So I wanted to go out and play around in the puddles, and ironically, we had no puddles. So we created a puddle in our classroom, got a big old bin, and we just experimented with dropping loose parts into the bin and to observe the ripple effect. And the students just really caught on to this so intuitively and quickly. And, you can see John's reflection that I added here. The ripple effect means when you drop something in the water, it makes smaller and then bigger and huger rings. Like something nice you do grows bigger, like say you're a good friend to someone. So they were really naturally able to connect the ripple effect, like the concreteness of like the water that they were observing, to other types of ripple effects in terms of their communication and how they can spread kindness through their words. So then what we did to represent our learning was each student came and added one concentric circle to this painting. And in term 1, we had done a long inquiry into color. And so they're just color mixing pros and absolutely love it. So that was a nice way to continue that as well. So they mixed a color that felt special to them. And then they added their circle to the painting. So this is what was created. So we can go to the next slide. Oh, sorry, one back, yeah. So this really became about our, like, what is our right and responsibility to spread kind, respectful, and productive communication into the world. And as always, we connect to the first people's principles of learning, particularly the second one, that learning is holistic, reflective, experiential, and relational. That was the really key word here, focused on connectedness and on reciprocal relationships and a sense of place. I also shared Dr. Vicki Kelly's words, we are all related, we are all related, we are all related, with the different, you'll notice the different capitalizations to add emphasis as it's repeated. That's from her piece, Finding Face, Finding Heart, Finding Foundation. It's so beautiful. And so we talked about this and how we all live in relationship with one another, in our families, in our classroom community, we have our school community, our larger community, and of course, those are like rings as well, those concentric circles. So just all kind of came together. And this connects the competency language that communication is closely linked to the building and sustaining of relationships. And as we talked about right at the beginning of the presentation, that fifth bullet point that Lauren shared, that building of positive relationships, and how if we choose kind and respectful words when we talk with our friends, our friendships get stronger, and how our words carry a lot of weight, and we have a responsibility to choose them carefully and in consideration of how they make others feel, because we're all related, we're all connected, and our communication is one of the simplest yet most powerful ways to be a good ancestor and to create a positive ripple effect in our world.
Wow. That was incredible. I would love to go back into kindergarten. You can be my teachers. That was unbelievable. I'm still, and I've seen your slides, but I'm still trying to sort through all that information. That was incredible. So deep. Hi, Anne-Marie. I can see that you're here.
And I think I'm wondering if, Lauren, do we want to do a couple questions before we move to Endie?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Does anybody have any connections or questions or? We're great at wait time. No worries.
I really appreciated the concepts, in terms of like the concept-based learning. And it was really interesting to hear the learning come alive through the children's voices, and their understanding of their world. And I think sometimes in schools, we rush through too much, and it really feels like your projects have helped children to slow down and to really dig deep into how we're all connected to one another and to the more than human world as well. I'm wondering, in terms of the learning stories and connecting with families, can you speak a little bit more to that in terms of how families have received it, or the diversity of families that you might serve in your communities?
Yeah, so because of the way that we teach, which I know you guys understand as well, we don't have a lot of things that we can show. Like they're not coming home with booklets and stuff. So we obviously have to take a lot of pictures, and those learning stories are where their learning really shows the richness of everything. We always say to the kids, like, learning doesn't live on a piece of paper. Learning lives in how we talk to each other, and learning lives in how we listen to each other and share all those things. So we use an online tool. So we, all of our reporting is done online, and we probably fire out maybe 2 a week to families to update them on everything that we're doing. And then we also print them off and put them in their portfolio, which will go home at the end of the year, that has all of their work separated by month. And then they'll have all the learning stories in each month as well. And then we will also print out photos so that they can see the photos that go along. And then at the end of the year, they get to take home just this tidy binder that has everything living in it. And then they also have it all online that they can access.
But those learning stories you're not doing twice a week, because those are
Yes.
intense. Wow. So that's your whole prep.
So
You do that during your entire prep.
Chelsea works one day a week. She works on Wednesdays, and she is an absolute rock star. Every Wednesday, she plans these most incredible projects and types it up so that families see every Wednesday what she's doing. I do one for the week.
Wow.
So,
That's
yeah.
incredible. That's so rich. I mean, you would get into the habit of it, and especially the student quotes. I assume you're collected during circle time, or and small groups. So I can see that piece, but wow, all the rest of it, that is very impressive. Good for you. Kudos.
It's fun to look at too when you see
It
everything that
is.
they've done. It's just kind of, it's neat.
It's neat. Good for our reflection as well, right? And
Yes.
and for us to look at our practice. And I find it yeah, just it's a really nice way to kind of reflect on how the day was. And of course, our voice is in there. The children's voices are always there too. And then because it's posted online, we get the parent voice as well. They're able to leave comments. So, that adds to just like the collaborative communication of it too. And then we always hop on and leave a response if a parent has left a comment. And so that can foster like more dialogue. And yeah, it's just really nice to look back and yeah.
The other cool thing is that we do them all using the same template on Canva, and you can post videos on those. So the ones that go online can actually have live videos of what the kids are doing in class, whereas when we print it out, it's just a still photo. But
Still
for the
incredible.
parents to be able to see like an actual video of like if the kids are just learning and we'll just go around with our camera and like this is the space. We're not, they don't even know that we're here at the moment. They're just,
Yeah.
I think the other magical thing about learning stories is that I also hand them out to other teachers who are wondering about our process and who are wondering about how to teach this way. And they can become really cool learning stories, lesson plans for other people. I also reference them from year to year and be like, what did we do? Because that was super cool. And then go back and look at it.
Right.
So.
Oh, wonderful examples. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Well, Endie, I can't wait to hear from you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think we'll just start with maybe some questions, and then and Endie, feel free to, veer off in whatever direction it needs to go. So I'm wondering if maybe we can tap into your role as an early childhood educator first. And I know that you teach at an outdoor preschool and outdoor daycare for 0 to 5 years old. Can you speak a little bit to and share some insight into young children's communication, especially in like a land-based learning kind of setting, and the importance of that, or even just like strategies or what you've noticed?
My goodness, there's so much. And, when we think about being educators and kind of co-learning alongside the children, like I had no idea when I started in childcare 4 years ago, just how much I was going to learn about myself and about being a community member and all of these things, and learning about the connection to the outdoors. I myself grew up in a suburb of Chicago, very much a city girl, did not spend a whole lot of time outdoors. People in my life thought I was nuts when I decided I was going to come and work in a primarily outdoor daycare. But I can remember even when I first started, because I started in January of 2020, and I was waiting for my last paycheck for my other job. So I didn't even have rain gear yet. And so I'm out there and it's cold and it's miserable and the weather was just awful. But I was watching the children, and yes, they had their muddy buddies and whatnot. But aside from like some rain protection, some water protection, their outfits weren't that different than mine. And I remember looking at them and wondering, like, okay, they're having a blast in this. It is just as cold for them. It is just as dark this time of year. They're having a blast. Like, what are they doing that I'm not? And that was sort of the start of my own inquiry to try and really understand the benefits of being outdoors and trying to figure out, well, how can I get in the same headspace they are and kind of understand the fun and the excitement and resilience that comes from being outside. at the time when I started, I am a mother of two, and my children were not in outdoor programs initially. I got them into summer camps though, like the minute I could. But I noticed right away, again, thinking about resilience, the difference between my children and these children that were actually younger than mine, in just being able to kind of cope with hardship. There is something that's really amazing about not being able to control the weather and just being out in it anyway. And, there's a wide range of reactions to that. And not every kid is going to love, being rained on in the dark in January. But the ones that were, the reason they were able to do that was because they kind of understood that, like, the weather's going to happen whether I have a good time or I don't have a good time. So, unless I'm really physically uncomfortable and there's a physiological need not being met, there's no reason to not make the most of this. And you've probably heard the saying, we say it at our daycare all the time, like, there's no bad weather, only, bad gear. So if you're dressing appropriately, like, with the exception of there's some conditions you're not going to want to be in, like lightning storms or things like that. But for the most part, snow shouldn't be a deterrent for going outside. And yeah, the children, it's like having that resilience and being able to cope with being outside when it wasn't super fun necessarily to be outside. It translated into other skills and more tolerance for other situations that they may have to cope with. A friend taking a toy, and their ability to regulate their emotions and communicate, I think, was directly linked to how they were able to deal with adversity that they couldn't control.
Yeah, thank you. I'm hearing kind of like that connection between not just communication on its own, but really in relationship. And I think Chelsea touched on that earlier, that relationship piece with the land and with one another and being in community and what it means. When you're working with very young children, some of them don't have the verbal communication yet. How do you how do you how do you get to know what it is that they need, and especially in those outdoor settings when they're getting rained on, other than the cries or other than the smiling and all the laughs, what have maybe what has shifted in your teaching practice in terms of working with very young children outdoors?
I think, in particular, because I did spend my first 3 years with 3 to 5s, and in this past year, I've been in an infant toddler program, and it's fascinating to me. Like, you kind of have this mindset of like, okay, well, they're only one, they don't understand, or they can't really communicate. But if you actually take the time, which is great, because just having the ratios being, instead of 1 to 8 in a bigger program of 1 to 4, you have a bit more of an opportunity to make those deeper connections. The children are incredibly communicative, even if they don't have verbal language yet. They have facial expressions, they've got their gestures, they have pointing, the tone of their voice. Like, they're learning so much. We were just doing a professional development, and we were talking about the UN Charter of Rights, and how, there's not anything that, like, explicitly talks about the right to be safe, but all of the other rights essentially are pointing to that. And we were talking about, like, well, how do you know a 1-year-old knows that they're safe? Like, how would you know? And yeah, like, when you really pause and think about, like, yes, it's more challenging than in a 3 to 5 program where they can verbally, you can say, hey, does your body feel safe on that tree? And they'll stop and think and tell you yes or no, and you can navigate that. But when you're asking a 1-year-old that, like, hey, do you feel safe doing that? There are indications, though. They may not have the exact words, but the look on their face, if you're pointing out to them that something might not be safe and they haven't had the ability to think about it ahead of time because they're just developmentally not there yet, you will see the look in their eye if they're like, oh my gosh, or like, oh yeah, they're smiling, they keep doing what they're doing. But yeah, I would say a lot of tone, a lot of body language. And I think it has helped me not only with my communication skills with the infant toddlers, but with people in general. once you start really paying attention to those nonverbal cues, it really gives you a lot of insight about the other adults around you and an awareness of what you might be communicating without intending to. I know one of the things that happens among adults, somebody's having an off day and they're a little bit withdrawn. And then the rest of the team is like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, do they hate me? What did I do? And just having that awareness of being like, oh, yeah, I didn't sleep really well and I'm kind of down today, but I'm not usually down. So everyone around me is going to think they've done something unless I let them know that. So it's really increased my communication skills, and I think our whole team's communication skills, just trying to encourage everyone to be able to be okay with not being okay, and reminding educators that, on any given day, a child is coming with a particular baseline. Just because a child could walk all the way from one area to a different area one day doesn't mean that the next day they're going to have that same capability. I know if I haven't slept well and I didn't eat breakfast, I'm not that functional. And that's going to be true of 1-year-olds. The only difference is I'm an adult who can regulate my emotions and I have the ability to express that. But a 1-year-old, like, oh my gosh, they walked so far yesterday. Like, why are they so crappy? And well, maybe it's because they walked so far yesterday. Like, their needs are not being met again today's. And learning to extend that grace to the other humans in our lives, whether they're our age, older, or the infant toddlers, and really trying to meet people where they're at and really paying attention to what's being communicated in any given moment.
Thank you. Lauren, before we switch hats to Endie's parent hat.
Yes.
Do you have another educator question, or can do a little switchy?
Well, I just have so many connections to what you're saying in terms of communication. I mean, I'm the typical Snickers commercial. When I'm hungry, I turn into a alter Lauren. And I feel like I'm hungry all the time. So I'm really trying to keep that in check. I love that idea of, again, the parallels between, we don't always communicate the same way, and nature doesn't always communicate the same way. So I think both April and I have read the Lost Art of Reading Nature's Signs by Tristan Gooley. And yeah, there are some patterns to reading when the wind is blowing northeast. That X, Y, and Z might happen, but that doesn't mean that's always going to happen. But, we're looking for patterns, and then we're looking for the absence of patterns, because the absence of patterns or the absence of communication might also tell us a lot. So I just love what you're saying. But yeah, I can't wait to hear the other hat come on.
Yeah, we'll do a little switcheroo hat.
Yeah.
And it would just be our last little question. Thinking about your role as an educator, as a parent, what might be supportive for families in terms of communication within the school or with the school? What do you wish? What would be a wish that you have in terms of communication? Maybe that's a better question.
Yeah, well, honestly, I wish all schools were doing learning stories the way Kelly and Chelsea demonstrated. I mean, honestly, part of why I became an early childhood educator was when my kids were in preschool. I was like, I don't, every now and then I get like a picture or two to show me they weren't crying, but I didn't really have any context. There wasn't any real pedagogical narration. I didn't really understand what they were learning. And I understand, believe me, I understand like that work takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of dedication and love and a lot of capacity. And I don't think schools are always properly supporting their educators to deliver that level of communication and engagement and creating a space that, if I was getting information like that twice a week, I'd be open in every email. I'd be excited about it. If now I'm getting an email, maybe once or twice a month, it's not about what the children are learning. It's just like, hey, don't forget to send them this. It's not exciting. As a parent, it's hard to engage with, and it kind of others the school system. It's a place that I send my kids to. I believe they're being cared for. I believe they're learning things, but it would be nice if I actually knew versus having to just believe and trust. I would like to actually know in my heart that like, oh yeah, they're coming home, they're excited. And again, like if I would also love to be in that classroom. I'd go home and I'd want to talk about water all the time. You know, I want to talk about water now, and I wasn't even in the classroom. It was just like, that was fantastic. Yeah, I wish that we supported educators who really be able to bring their hearts and souls in that spark and make people excited about learning the way that every child and frankly every human deserves to be excited, I think.
And that's the perfect way to end off, Endie. I think you really spoke to you, and I think you and Chelsea and Kelly, you all spoke to not just the idea of communication, but at the heart of it is about relationships and the relationships that we build within our school communities and within our greater community makes a difference in how we can support and nurture children and nurture human beings to be, I don't know, the most human beings that we can be.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much. And before we end, just to let everybody know that our next session is June 5th, and it's on Reflective Circles by Jen Morgan, and she is just as amazing as these three. So I'm very excited to sort of wrap up our sessions with that.